Haunted Hearts Society members. It's me, Emily S.W.
Sam.
And today, we are coming at you with another episode of the Haunted Hearts Society Dark Literature Podcast with another banger. Well, I enjoyed it. We'll get into it. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Yes.
Du Maurier?
Du Maurier.
Yeah. I mean, I would look at this and being a extremely French-looking name would pronounce it like it was extremely French.
Yeah, it does look very French, too.
She was not French, she was British.
British, yeah. Well, you know, the Brits do like to take things from the French, or they did.
Well, I mean, the French kind of invaded them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, when William the Conqueror defeated King Harold at the Battle of Hastings on October 14th, 1066. Normans are from Normandy, which is France.
Yeah. So make sure to give us a like and subscribe if you're here on YouTube, or follow us if you're listening to us somewhere else that is not YouTube. And you can also follow us, join us on Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Substack for the strange, obscure, and bygone.
You know, actually, I came up with another, mission statement tagline.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's things that are only of interest to vampires and other anachronisms.
I like the idea of being an anachronism. That is very gender envy. That is very gender-coded, being an anachronism.
Yeah, well, because we talk about old stuff. Obscure stuff, so it's not necessarily, I think, things that the average modern person cares about, but if you were someone, you know, who was around in, especially the 20s, when I'm talking about silent films, or, you know, the 19th century, if you happen to be an immortal vampire who lived through those times, it may be of interest to you.
Yeah, it might even be charming to hear a modern person's take on those things that you've already lived through.
Assuming we're modern people.
Assuming.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
This is all ruse, actually. We're actually from ancient times in another dimension. In another galaxy far, long, long ago. Or however Star Wars starts.
Long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm listening.
No, it's like Power Rangers. I'm an interdimensional being caught in a time warp.
Sure. I was not a Power Rangers kid.
Oh man, I loved Power Rangers when I was a kid. And I only know that because I tried watching the pilot as an adult. And I was watching it, I was like, wow, this is dumb as hell. But it was funny. It was funny. The interdimensional being caught in a time warp is the reason why there's just this face floating in this tube.
Yeah. My friend who was at the book swap we did, the Galentines, they have an entire Power Rangers collection, and I'm pretty sure they've been collecting all the original Power Rangers on VHS.
Listen, I had a huge crush on the Red Power Ranger.
Who didn't? Listen, I've never watched Power Rangers. I don't really know anything about it, but as a person adjacent to people who really love Power Rangers, that seems like a universal experience.
I told you I'm predictable, but it makes me easy to shop for.
Well, but also, red is kind of just your vibe. The color red.
But see, I also really well, here's the thing. The characters changed.
I didn't watch Power Rangers. I was really into Captain Planet, though.
Oh, see, I've never seen that one. That
stuck with me from Captain Planet is the rings. Our powers combined.
See,
and it's and honestly, that kind of predicted my recent obsession with Magical Girls and Sailor Moon. Because it's, I feel like it's similar, because you've got heart and soul and all the different elements, whatever. We've gotten a little off topic.
We were never on topic to begin with. So
Rebecca, a gothic novel that has nothing to do with Power Rangers.
Unfortunately.
No. Or Sailor Moon.
Their
or
loss.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, this was actually genuinely a good book.
It was highly enjoyable.
I think was one of the best things I've read in a long time.
Yeah, it had a very particular quality for me. I really liked it. It was so atmospheric. And, the vibes were immaculate. I did, however, it was interesting and boring at the same time for me. And I don't know if this is maybe, as a neurodivergent person who, I have ADHD, so focus is a struggle for me sometimes. It is a bit of a slow book. The plot is a little... It's not a smash-bang action-adventure.
Yeah,
it's
not an action plot.
Yeah, it's not an action-y plot. It's very psychological. It's very moody. And I was into it, and it was effective. But I also could only read it for so long in one sitting before my mind would start to wander.
I I read like half the book in one go. Here's the thing, the writing was phenomenal. Like the actual
absolutely.
writing
Yes.
was great.
Yes, and the story was satisfyingly... Like, this isn't a horror book. It's like a creeping psychological... I would even say thriller. It's not really a psychological thriller. It's like a psychological, am I going insane? Am I not going... It's like an existential crisis kind of horror.
Alright, we were going to talk about the differences in the copies that we have.
Yes, once again, I got my copy from the library. It's just a everyman's library copy. I really like, in general, when I can find these because they'll have a little introduction that tells you about the author and the background of the story, and they also often will have a chronology of like the author's life. And this one is really nice for Daphne du Maurier because it has literary context on one side. It has like historical events and what was being published at each point in the author's life. So 1907, she was born. Then it has a list of what happened. So Rudyard Kipling wins the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1907, and also historical events that were happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is really cool because it gives context without having to go digging all over the internet or in Encyclopedia Britannica or wherever it is you get your information from. We're going to talk about fonts right now, so...
Okay. Here, well, can we start with the cover?
Okay, let's start with the cover. Okay.
My copy, I thrifted it. It is an Avon Books
Oh my god.
trade paperback from 1997.
Can we, not in this podcast, we've already been off topic enough, but Avon did some banging stuff. For an MLM, they've put out some banger products.
Have you ever seen their, like, satanic gothic novels?
Yes. I've seen those floating around the internet. You have that collection of the red glassware. That's Avon, isn't it?
Yes.
That just looks like vampire chalices.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they put out some really cool stuff.
That was, like, back in the 90s, though.
Like, if they still put stuff out like that, I would be part of that pyramid scheme. They're really missing the market.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. Of note, though, this was originally published in 1938.
Yes.
So this story's kind of timeless, I feel like. It's not that important. I was just kind of imagining everyone in, like, that time period of clothing, though. The clothing is important.
The clothing is important. Yeah, like the fashion, also the society vibes.
Yeah.
Are important, and in particular, knowing that it's set in between the wars is also, because there's some international travel going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my book looks like the cover of a romance.
It does. It's pink and blue. It's got a curly, fancy font for the title.
Yeah, the title being Rebecca, and Rebecca she's not this girl.
No, and my cover it's a dramatic portrait of a 1938 woman staring at you. That's it. It's blue, it's black and blue, and I feel like my cover fits the book a little more.
I like this cover, though, because it's a little deceptive.
It is. Well, and it's like, Rebecca is kind of a romance. Not really. It's an obsession story.
You know I take notes.
Yes, I do know
I don't take my notes until I'm finished reading, and then I kind of reflect back. But here's what I wrote down about the main man. His name is Maxim de Winter. He's supposed to be in his 40s.
42.
Yeah, and the main character is...
unnamed.
Yeah, she has no name. But she's, like, 22 or something like that.
Yeah, she's, like, fresh out of college. Whatever school.
I wrote that he was in Armada of red flags.
Oh my god. Oh my god, yeah. The whole beginning of the book, like, I didn't have any sticky tabs with me, so I was using paper clips. I almost stuck paper clips on every other page of this damn book, just because something would happen, he would say something, or he would do something, and I would be like, somebody call the police. I know she's legal, but this is weird behavior. Creepy, weirdo, get away, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Like, if this was a football game, they never would have gotten to the halftime because there were so many red flags.
The font.
Oh, right, the font. You have a lot of strong feelings. My copy is just kind of
That's a boring font.
It's just a regular font. It does that thing that I find European, British literature will do, where instead of full quotation marks, it's just a single quotation mark. That's kind of like a UK thing.
Yeah, the book I'm reading now does that.
Yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of it, but that's just stylistic. You have thoughts about the font in your book.
Yeah, I was looking to see, sometimes they say what the font is. It doesn't appear that this says.
Interesting.
So the font I have is very angular. It's like the commas and the quotation marks don't curve at all. They're kind of like straight lines.
You know what it's giving? It's giving I'm 15 writing a story in Microsoft Word 1997.
Yeah, and sometimes when I'm reading a book, I feel like if you notice the font, then the font's not a good choice.
Yes.
But I was really thinking about the font all the way through this, especially because of how angular the quotation marks are. I kind of liked it. This one, it didn't really bother me, but I was noticing it.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're reading a book and you start noticing the font too much, it like kind of takes away from the words because you're like, man, this font stupid.
Well, because you're not immersed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the only thought I had about the font. It's just a font I feel like you don't see in books printed now.
No, well,
and I feel like it's a very romance font. You know what it is?
Something about it screams like teenage girl to me.
Because of the way the font is, it makes the words and the narrative feel very like airy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, because it's not a serif. Whereas Times New Roman is a serif, you know, and it has, like, weight. It's almost got this formality to it because, oh, it's Times New Roman.
Yeah, this doesn't have that. It's like everything is kind of up in the air.
Yeah. It's, like, not as grounded as Times New Roman because Times New Roman, or, like, a serif like that, tends to be a little bottom-heavy because of the little feet on the letters. So these don't really have the feet, so...
This is really of no consequence to the story at all, but...
No, well, it is part of the text, though, because it does... Oh, I forget. I had an entire English class where we talked about this. When you pick up a book, the entire book is the text, right? Like, you can look, like we said, cover, inside cover, the cover page, the copyright. Like, that's not usually part of the story, but it is part of your experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, these things are designed in a certain way to guide your experience in some way, shape, or form. This font was chosen for a reason.
Because it's Avon. I don't know, trying to bill it as romance. It's not romance. There's very little romance in this. In fact, there's no romance in this. This is not romantic at all. This is an anti-romance. The characters. We'll just get right into it. Max de Winter.
Weirdo.
Red flag. Red flag. Red flag. Red flag. He has a manor. He has servants.
He throws society parties.
We don't know what they do. It seemed like he just wrote letters to people all day long and they took walks and got angry. That was like their whole life.
Very British aristocracy coded.
What do they do all day? I was trying to figure that out. Like, legitimately, what did he do that made him so important?
It just had money.
Yeah, but theoretically they need to get more money, otherwise they'd eventually spend it all.
Well, so, I guess the whole family wealth or whatever, like, that's usually investments, right? Like, somebody down his family lineage did a bunch of stuff and made a bunch of money, and then other people invested it. And then you don't have to work because your money is making money or something. I don't know. That's not my life.
But he really didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Like, he wasn't even really that interesting.
No, he moped. He moped, and he was handsome, I guess. And he could drive a car, and he paid attention to the main character.
Sort of.
The reason he paid attention to the main character, this was one of those, like, red flag things where I would have had so many red flag paper clips at the beginning of the book. Because, essentially, he's telling the main character, I like you because you're not old. Because she's trying to be grown and mature, and she doesn't want to be this young, naive girl anymore. And she wants to be confident, and she thinks in order to be confident, like, oh, you know what, I want to be grown like this 42-year-old man who's being a weirdo and full of red flags. But he's just like, no, actually, I like the fact that you're young and naive. Like, that's your charm. Gross. Ew. Red flag.
You know who says that kind of stuff?
Groomers.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yes.
And, like, again, technically, she is legal. She is of age.
Or they say things like, oh, you're so mature for your age.
Yes. Oh my god. I don't care how old you are, if somebody says you're so mature for your age, that is not a compliment. That is a red flag. But yeah, and let me see. And he also infantilizes her. Like, he treats her like a child. And it's just weird. And I disliked it.
The narrator. This is written in first person. And the narrator is never named. No first name. She's only ever named in relation to, I guess, the people she's with. So, Max decides he wants to marry her after, like, a week of knowing her.
Yeah, a week of essentially whisking her away from her chaperone.
So she never has an identity outside of Max or Mrs. Van Hopper, who is her employer to begin with. She's employed as like this travel companion.
A bosom friend.
Yeah, and then also no identity other than who she is in relation to Rebecca.
I do think that's part of the point of the book.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, the main... So this is told in first person, so, you know, you're in the narrator's head, I statements, and you never get her name. You only get her relation to other people. And she is just obsessed with everyone around her. Like, she has no sense of self. She only exists in her relationships with other people. And she doesn't always like that. She chafes at it, especially with Mrs. Van Hopper in the beginning, because she's not treated very well and she's often overlooked, but she has no identity of her own. The only thing we really learn about her as a person is that she went to school and she likes to draw.
But I don't think she ever actually draws anything on page.
No, people talk about it, and she mentions it vaguely, but she never draws anything. It never becomes anything. And even, you could even make the argument then that if she's only, depending on what she's drawing, if she's only going out and drawing things that she sees in real life, she's still just copying. She's still just making art in relation to other things, you know? Which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not...
She's not creating.
Right.
Like, she is, but she isn't. And I think that kind of perfectly sums up her character. And that I think she's so neurotic, which I enjoyed, but it was also part of the reason that I couldn't read this for very long, is because I was getting kind of frustrated with her. I just wanted to shake her.
Well, you know, for all her faults, because Mrs. Van Hopper in the beginning is also really obnoxious.
She is. She's very gossipy, demanding attention.
Trying to appear to be more well-to-do.
Thinks she's super important. She kind of reminds me of the portrayal of, in Agatha, the Murder on the Orient Express, the American woman, Mrs. H. Is that her name?
Oh, I don't remember, no.
But in Murder on the Orient Express, because she's a middle-aged American woman who is just depicted as being super obnoxious and in everyone's business and super loud and...
Yeah, that's Mrs. Van Hopper. But however, Mrs. Van Hopper was right when she tells narrator that she was making a big mistake.
Yes. Mrs. Van Hopper, though, is never doing the main character any favors. And, like, why would the main character take anything Mrs. Van Hopper says as genuine? Because she's not a genuine person. So it's like, too little, too late.
I think she's able to say that just because she kind of has the wisdom of being an older person who has probably experienced more relationships.
Yeah, and I do think that the main character, the thing that she's lacking is, like, people are always telling her what to do, what to think, and how to do things, whatever, but nobody ever teaches her anything. They tell her things, but nobody teaches her. At that age, you're essentially hardwired. Your brain is like, no, I know what's best. Like, that's psychologically, developmentally, that's just what your brain is doing. So, to tell a young 20-something, they're, you know, like, it's not gonna stick. And they're probably gonna do the opposite, just because you told them what to do.
So, the question is, why does Mr. De Winter want to take on a much younger wife? Well, because we find out his wife, who was actually his age,
named Rebecca,
of his, you know, similar social status, I guess, is deceased.
Do we want to talk about the how and the why of that, or say
the how and the why? Let's just talk about who she was as a person. Because Rebecca is the ghost that haunts the entire story, right? Like, she is in every aspect of everyone's lives, whether they like it or not. And the narrator, you know, marries her husband. Mm-hmm. They go to her house. She's set up, not in her rooms, but at her writing desk with her writing implements, her letters, her servants. She tells them not to change anything from how Rebecca did it. And everyone is saying, well, Rebecca did this and Rebecca did that and she held these parties, and are you also going to hold these parties? Everyone just seems to love and adore and miss Rebecca terribly.
Except for Max.
But I think there are... Now, I had the inkling pretty early on that Rebecca was not actually a good person. There's a lot of hints.
Yeah.
At first appearances, you would think that Max is cold to the narrator because he wants her to still be Rebecca. But she's not, so she's falling short of his expectations. But then, as we learn more and more and more about Rebecca from other characters, and they kind of, not even, I think, intentionally, kind of drop these little hints. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, I think it's gonna be one of the twists. There were so many twists in this story.
They really, you get towards the end of the book and it's just like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm starting to think Rebecca was not the person that everyone keeps saying that she was. One of the really big hints early on is when the narrator is on a beach, and there's a man on the beach, and his name is Ben. And Ben is someone who we see has some kind of developmental disability. The narrator's trying to talk to him, and he says to her, the other one is gone, and obviously he's referring to Rebecca. She's not going to come back anymore. And he tells her that Rebecca had threatened to put him away in an asylum.
Which is the biggest of red flags.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, that's pretty mean.
That's not
that's pretty callous.
A good person
That's cold.
would say.
So I was like, okay, so Ben is clearly afraid of Rebecca. So that's our first hint.
I would disagree. That is not our first hint.
Okay, what's the first one?
Even before that, before they get married, hold on, I'm gonna flip. Okay, I found it. So, in the very beginning of the book, before they get married, they're at Monte Carlo. Is it Monte Carlo? Yeah. And Rebecca and Max are doing their thing where they go out during the day. And so at some point, she finds in his car this book of poetry. And he's like, oh, you can borrow the book. You want to read it? You can borrow it. Rebecca gets back to her room later.
You're the narrator.
Sorry. The narrator gets back to her room after being out with him. She has the book. She opens it to... It's a book of poems. And it's a well-worn, it's an old book, it's been clearly well-read, and it falls automatically open at what must be a much-frequented page. And this is the poem that is on that page. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of the years. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind. And in the midst of tears, I hid from him in under running laughter. Up vistaed slopes I sped and shot, precipitated adown titanic glooms of chasmed fears. For those strong feet that followed after. And now, obviously in the poem, the narrator, the poet, is fleeing a hymn. But I think, because this is Max's book.
It was a gift from Rebecca.
That was a gift from Rebecca. But I think this is the first clue that Rebecca was not the picture-perfect, charming, kind soul that we're supposed to think she is. Because I think we're supposed to take from this that Max is the one who opens the volume to this poem all the time. And Rebecca is who he has these feelings for. Because also the narrator, after reading this, she has these thoughts of what footsteps echoed in his mind, what whispers and what memories, and why, of all poems, must he keep this one in the pocket of his car?
I was more concerned about the signature on the cover page.
Yes, the signature, the signature on the cover page is a very important aspect, but I think that poem is actually the first clue.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
No, I agree with you.
And so this book is very clever. Mm-hmm. And it's very clever in a way that when you get to the end, it makes you think about the beginning in a new way.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do. I think a good mystery, at the end of the day, that's what a good mystery does. Is you get to the end, you get to all the twists and whatever happens, you get the solution to the mystery. And it makes you look at the beginning of the story and go, oh. And this book does that. Everyone should read this book, I think. I do also think I wish I had it as an audiobook. I think this would slap as an audiobook. Just personally.
Okay.
Just because of the way the descriptions are, like, I feel like if it has a good narrator, I feel like this would be a good book to, like, go take a walk in a park and listen to it, you know?
They do take a lot of walks.
They do, like, I think it would be very atmospheric.
Should we move on with the characters? Alright, Mrs. Danvers.
Oh, Mrs. Danvers.
Mrs. Danvers she's kind of like the head housemaid.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one in charge. And
She's almost like a lady in waiting to... She was almost like a lady's maid to Rebecca.
She's another vestige of Rebecca's influence. But she also kind of raised Rebecca from a child. So they were very close.
Well, yeah, and honestly, like, the mean girl vibes from Mrs. Danvers. She's a woman. Well, she's not a mean girl, she's a woman.
Yeah, but here's the thing. She's described to us as almost looking, like, skeletal.
Yeah.
And... brings back to mind, like, the Death Head Phantom, where her appearance itself is kind of creepy and uncanny and not obviously a warm, cheery, kind person, which reflects her personality because she is not at all a warm, cheery, or kind person. And I guess that makes sense that she and Rebecca got along so well because they are similarly cruel.
Yes. Well, yeah, and I think that's another clue. Right, is like, oh, Mrs. Danvers and Rebecca were really close. Why would such a nice, kind person be so close to a horrible person?
But you could also interpret that as Mrs. Danvers is resentful of the fact Rebecca has been replaced.
That's true. Yeah, you can interpret it that way. Or, like, even just the fact that they were close. Oh, that's what you just said. Never mind. Sorry. It took a minute for that to sink fully into my brain.
Yeah, it happens. I have to say, though, the scene with the costume ball where Mrs. Danvers suggests to the narrator, oh, why don't you look at this very particular painting and take inspiration for your costume from that. That was obviously a setup. If you had any amount of brain cells working in your head, the narrator should have realized that was a setup. Well, there was no point in the story thus far where Mrs. Danvers was nice or helpful to her.
Well, and the thing of that is, the narrator just think about that. Like, this is a change-up. Mrs. Danvers is never helpful to me. What is this? What is this about? But the narrator is so obsessed with becoming Rebecca and thinking that she needs to be Rebecca and missing all the signs that being anyone but Rebecca is actually the better option. But because she is so obsessed with the idea that she needs to be Rebecca and that she can be happy and successful like the way Rebecca is described to her, if only she could do everything that Rebecca did. Like, I think she's just so willing to do whatever Rebecca did that she doesn't even take the time to think about, maybe I shouldn't listen to this woman who's been really not nice to me. It is very stupid. Like, as the audience, or as the reader, it was like, again, I just wanted to shake her. What are you doing? Stop it.
But can you, imagine though, you draw up a sketch, and then you send it off to a shop, and they go, oh yeah, we can do that. And then they just make the whole thing just based on your sketch.
And you don't have to worry about the money.
Yeah, it didn't even, like, it wasn't even mentioned how much it costs or how she paid them. And they just sent it, and it was exactly how she sketched it.
That is absolutely not how custom dressmaking works.
She didn't even have to go to the shop to be measured or anything.
No. Yeah, no. If you wanted, first of all, if you wanted a custom dress like that, that would cost hella money.
They made a whole wig for her, too.
Yeah. Yeah, so Max is upset about this. Because he's essentially seeing a ghost now.
Oh, yeah.
The narrator is essentially, like, Rebecca haunts the book, but also the narrator is almost like the real-life personification of the ghost of Rebecca, physically. Because she won't let Rebecca die. That, I think, is one of the things, like, nobody will let Rebecca die. Her memory is alive and well.
For worse.
Definitely not for better. Definitely for worse.
But you know who the best character was? Beatrice.
I was going to say Jack. The dog. His name is
Jasper.
Jasper.
Jack was the cousin in the...
Oh, right. He was not the best character. No, Jack was... I like Jasper. The best character in this book was Jasper the dog.
The best human was Beatrice.
Yeah.
Max's sister. The narrator is warned right off. Like, if she doesn't like you, she'll just tell you to your face.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. When you're dealing with upper society and aristocrats, I feel like that's a breath of fresh air to have someone who is genuine, who's not constantly lying to your face and is going to stab you in the back. But Beatrice is also genuinely nice.
Yeah.
She's blunt, she's forthright, but she's actually a kind person.
Well, and that's such a contrast to literally every other character in the book. She's upfront, and blunt is not mean. Blunt is not a bad thing.
No, because she's honest.
Yeah.
And she's never really cruel with her opinions either.
No. Well, and I think personally, if you're being honest, like, honesty is never cruel on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it cruel with your own intentions, but being honest is never cruel. I don't think. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. One of the notes I wrote about her was that was very American of her.
Yeah, Americans do often get portrayed, especially in other countries' media, as being just very open and blunt and straightforward. Yeah, that's a good point.
Even more so than Mrs. Van Hopper, who was trying to actually keep up an appearance the whole time.
Yeah, because Mrs. Van Hopper was, trying to keep up appearances is the best way to put it. Like, she was trying to fit in with high society and get all the gossip, and, like, she was a mean girl, too. You know, she wanted all the tea, and she wanted to know all the important people.
The setting.
Ooh, the setting.
Because we talk a lot about how the setting, especially buildings in Gothic, are almost a character unto themselves. And most of the story takes place in what's called Manderley, which is the De Winter home.
And the first line of this book is just so iconic.
Yeah.
Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again.
So it's basically this manor estate mansion. Every time she's talking about going to the different wings and stuff, it's like this house is massive.
Your classic it's not a castle, but it's the classic sprawling British estate that I feel like we all have that lives in our heads. Where it's not a castle, but it's old and it's got this air of grandeur about it, and it was described so well too.
Yeah. Unlike a lot of Gothics where the castle is crumbling and in disrepair and represents the decay of, you know, the mental state of all the characters. Obviously this is kept up, but it's still full of Rebecca's presence.
Well, yeah, this, I think, instead of representing a decaying mental state, it's a mausoleum.
Yeah, because, like, the gardens are hers, the flowers that she wanted planted. I think I mentioned before, her furniture is still there, all her stuff is still there. It's, like, it's full of these past memories and bygone days, but even to an extreme, because Mrs. Danvers still keeps her room.
Yeah, I think it's described like a shrine.
Yeah, it's like as if she's still living there. Like, she still, you know, folds the clothes and
keeps it fresh.
Keeps it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's important too, because in a lot of Gothic stories or stories that take influence from Gothic, when you've got that character who's passed away, a lot of the times it'll be like, you know, their room was shut away and no one ever goes in there, and it gets covered in dust, and like all the furniture is covered in, especially when you watch like a movie that's got Gothic leanings, you know, all the furniture and all the mirrors are covered in sheets, and you go in there and it's dusty and there's cobwebs. But this is the opposite. It's kept alive.
I don't know, it just makes a very uncomfortable situation for the narrator.
It does. But like, again, like, she never catches on to maybe chill on the Rebecca cosplay.
Again, that goes along with her never having a name, because her identity is very underdeveloped.
Yeah, and I do think also, like, the narrator had to be this young in order for this to happen.
Yeah, this story wasn't going to work any other way.
No, like, anybody who had any sort of life, like, relationship experience...
Well, first of all, you wouldn't marry a man 20 years your senior after only knowing him for a week.
Yeah, and they didn't even, like, kiss or bang or anything.
I mean, it's implied.
Yeah, it's
But, you know, she marries this guy and then she gets to Manderley and she goes, well, I actually know nothing about him.
Gee, who could have predicted this?
And even the other characters are like, do you actually love him? And she's like, oh, yes, of course. Like, well, how do you know? You don't actually know this guy. And this whole story takes place over the span of, like, a few months.
Yeah, it's a very quick timeline. That's the honeymoon phase.
Oh, yeah, she even has this whole thing because Max is angry with her because of the costume ball incident, and she's like, well, my marriage failed after 4 months. You've only known him for the 4 months.
Slow down, crazy. Oh my god, do you ever watch the Sassy Gay Friends? The Sassy Gay Friend on YouTube?
Yes.
Before
it just became an advert.
The Romeo and Juliet one. You met him on a Thursday and it's Sunday. Slow down, crazy. Slow down.
I remember those videos, yeah. That's kind of what it's like, though. And I think, too, especially because when they are not really dating in the beginning, but he's taking her out, and he'll take her, like, they go to, like, the top of this cliff, and he's just kind of standing there mad.
Brooding.
And she asks him, what's wrong? And he's like, nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why?
I'll drive you back down the mountain, I guess.
Why? It's like, he's already mad at you for every little thing. Why are you going to marry this guy? Oh, because of what, his status and money, and because you want to stick it to Mrs. Van Hopper? That's kind of how it came across.
That's really it. Like, literally, this is the first thing that's come around. That, like, because Mrs. Van Hopper gets sick and has to lay in bed for a few weeks. So that's why the narrator gets this freedom to go out and frolic in Monte Carlo with Max. And that's her first sort of rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's not telling Mrs. Van Hopper what's going on. She's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. Like, that's the first and only sort of agency that she ever gives herself, is not doing what she's told and actively lying to Mrs. Van Hopper. But that agency is almost contradicting itself, because she uses that agency to go do everything that Max says and to try and be his dead wife.
And I think another really sad thing about the situation is, and the narrator comments on this too, because Max doesn't want to have another wedding. He just, he says to her, let's just, go to the town hall and sign the papers. And she kind of laments the fact that she never got to have the whole wedding with the dress and the party and everything like that. Like, he already had it.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I don't want that.
He had it with Rebecca, but he really robs her of that experience as well.
He really does. He really does. It's like, well, some of us in this relationship, Mr. De Winter, have never had a wedding before.
Yeah.
But on the subject of their relationship, I did mark. So there's this dinner scene. I don't remember if it's before or after the ball. The costume party thing. They're having this dinner, so, he's sitting at one end of the table, and she's sitting at the narrator is sitting at the other end of the table. And she goes through this whole thing in her head, this whole pretend scenario. She thinks about what would happen, with Rebecca and Max, and how they would be sitting in these same places. Oh, here it is. I pictured Rebecca sitting where I sat now, picking up her fork for the fish, and then the telephone ringing, and Frith coming into the room and saying, "Mr. Fauvel on the phone, madam, wishing to speak to you." And Rebecca would get up from her chair, and with a quick glance at Maxim, who would not say anything, who would go on eating his fish. When she came back, having finished her conversation, and sat down in her place again, Rebecca would begin talking about something different in a gay, careless way to cover up the little cloud between them. She goes on in this fantasy, and Max is like, what the hell are you thinking about? Because she's making faces and, muttering to herself.
She's kind of acting it out.
Acting it out, and she's like, well, I can't tell him that I had this whole play in my head. And Max is like, first you listened as though you heard the telephone, and then your lips moved, and you threw half a glance at me, and you shook your head and smiled and shrugged your shoulders. Are you practicing your appearance for the fancy dress ball? Okay, it was. And then she's like, no, I wasn't thinking about anything. I don't want to tell you.
Great basis for a relationship.
Yeah, great basis for a relationship, but then...
Or I should say, for a marriage.
Yeah. And so she won't tell him what he's thinking. And he's like, do you know you did not look a bit like yourself just now? You had quite a different expression on your face. And the narrator says, I did? What sort of expression? I don't know that I can explain. You looked older suddenly, deceitful. It was rather unpleasant. Another little Easter egg of, Rebecca, probably not good. And then the narrator is like, do you want me to look older? Max says no. Why not? Because it would not suit you. One day I shall. It can't be helped. I shall have gray hair and lines and things. I don't mind that. What do you mind then? I don't want you to look like you did just now. You had a twist to your mouth and a flash of knowledge in your eyes. Not the right sort of knowledge. What do you mean, Maxim? What isn't the right sort of knowledge? And so then Max takes a moment to think about this. When I met you, and here's another red flag. When I met you first, you had a certain expression on your face, he said slowly, and you have it still. I'm not going to define it, I don't know how to, but it was one of the reasons why I married you. A moment ago, when you were going through that curious little performance, the expression had gone. Something else had taken its place. And the narrator's like, can you explain it to me? And he says, listen, my sweet, when you were a little girl, were you ever forbidden to read certain books, and did your father put those books under lock and key? Yes. Well then, a husband is not so very different from a father after all. Red flag. There is a certain type of knowledge I prefer you not to have. It is better kept under lock and key, so that's that. And now eat up your peaches and don't ask me any more questions or I shall put you in the corner.
Gross.
Yeah.
Man.
First of all, red flag. Second of all, these are just more little crumbs being laid in front of the narrator of... Why do you keep trying to be Rebecca? Max does not want you to do that.
Max barely wants her to be a wife.
Yeah, he basically just wants somebody in the house with him to distract him from all the stuff that reminds him of his wife. Like, that's it.
And he picked someone that he could...
Groom. Manipulate. Try to mold into what he wanted out of a wife. Weird behavior. Gross. I hate it.
That being said, this was a really good book.
It was a really good book. The twist at the end, should we not talk about the twist?
No, I don't want to talk about the twist.
You should read this book. The ending was so good. The twist at the end was so good. The way it was done was so good. And... Do
you think in classic Gothic fashion everyone got what they deserved?
No, that's an interesting question. I don't know if we can... Because Max doesn't really get punished. He does,
not for... I should say the punishment he receives is not direct response to anything that he's done. No. It's kind of happenstance. So I guess you could say it's karmic. It's not because of the things he did to the narrator or the things he did to Rebecca.
Yeah. In a sense, no, but in a sense, yes. Like, it's not as immediately satisfying of a sort of comeuppance for Max. And, I mean, maybe this is colored by the fact that from the beginning I was like, red flag, I hate this man. This man is weird and gross, and I hope he falls off a cliff. So maybe that's my perception. But I think the biggest consequence is that Manderley burns down.
That's not a spoiler because it literally says, like, in the first few pages that Manderley is no more.
Yeah, and that doesn't spoil the twists either.
No.
But so Manderley, at the end of the book, Manderley burns down and Mrs. Danvers, the housekeeper, disappears. I think we're supposed to infer that Mrs. Danvers sets it on fire and then runs away.
Here was another thing, too, because there were 2 dogs.
Yeah.
And it did the same thing that Jules Verne did, where it just kind of stopped mentioning the second dog and forgot it existed. If you are writing a story and you start talking about a dog and you suddenly decide to no longer mention the dog ever again, I will notice.
When you're used to reading horror, where'd that dog go? If you don't want to write about the dog, first of all, don't include the dog. If the dog's not important, don't include the dog. Because I'm going to care about the dog.
If anything bad happens to the dog, just don't do it.
No, take it out of the book. There's animal
dogs,
cruelty.
Cats. Actually, all animals.
All animals.
All animals.
Yes.
Actually, there's a lot of places I draw lines, but that's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting book, too, because the narrator is frustrating in a lot of ways. But, like, she kind of gets what she wanted in the end, which is to live a life. But it's not a life I would want.
No, it sounds boring as heck.
It sounds really boring, but I wouldn't even say she's content, because she is also trapped in Manderley. Because this book is told sort of past tense, like it's the author's recollections, present day of her and Max living in these hotels in Europe and going around from place to place. So it's kind of implied, like, in a similar way to Max, or like Rebecca being kept alive, the thought of her, the ghost of her being kept alive at Manderley. Even though Manderley has been burned down, Manderley still lives in the narrator. Rebecca still lives. Sorry, I'm like banging on the book to make my point. Rebecca, the ghost of Rebecca is still haunting the narrator, who never met Rebecca.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too, you can tell this was written before the war.
Oh, yeah.
Because that would have thrown a wrench into that plan.
Yeah.
It was only 1 year away. World War II starts, and they're not bombing through Europe anymore.
Nope. So no, this is a very interesting book. I'm really glad I read it. I highly recommend it.
Well, like I said, this was some of the best writing I think I've read in a long time.
Absolutely.
That's all I've got. So.
Yeah, I think that's all I got. I mean, I just marked a couple things about, like, themes, but we pretty much covered them. I did mark a quote because the narrator just starts talking. Get thee behind me, Satan, near the beginning. Yeah. And that just stood out to me as being funny. He loves me. He wants to show me Manderley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep telling yourself that.
But she's thinking, get thee behind me, Satan, about Rebecca, which is just so ironic. Yeah.
You know what? It just made my brain go, not today, Satan. Not today.
Well, that's what it makes me think. Well, and get thee behind me, Satan, that's got to be a reference to something. Like, this isn't the first book that appeared in, right? Like, is that a Bible thing? I don't know. Because I've heard that reference, get thee behind me, Satan, and I'm like, did that come from this book, or did that...
I don't know. More research might be required.
Yeah, it was a good read. Definitely go pick it up. Don't look up any spoilers.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Go into the book blind. Don't.
I actually really had no idea what happened in this book before I read it. And the description on the back really isn't that helpful either.
No.
But you have to go into this not knowing the story already, because otherwise you won't get the full impact of all the twists and turns. And that's what makes, reading fun.
Yeah, oh yeah, I definitely agree. So yeah, and so for our next episode, we've got a short story lined up instead of a novel. I'm excited, I'm looking forward to it. Got a friend of the channel returning.
Yeah, we're big fans. There's your hint.
Yeah. So that's all she wrote. We still haven't written our outro.
No.
On the board.
That's alright.
Right,
well, wrap it up.
If you enjoyed, leave us a comment. Let us know if you've read Rebecca before and what you thought of it. If you haven't read it, are you planning on reading it? Have you seen there's an Alfred Hitchcock adaptation?
Oh, yes.
Very famous adaptation.
Yes.
Let us know. Remember, if you haven't already, to hit the like button if you're on YouTube, or favorite it, heart it, wherever you're listening. Subscribe, follow us. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, Substack, and obviously YouTube.
Join us
for the strange, the obscure, and the bygone. What was it you said earlier?
Things only of interest to vampires and other anachronisms.
Be an anachronism with us.
Or a vampire. Your choice.
Aren't we such nice cult leaders?
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you next time, Internet. Goodbye.
Bye.